Hello guys, and welcome back. This is going to be a little bit of a different episode. As you can probably tell, I'm sitting in my office, and that is because today, this is a big episode. This is the 50th episode of the vlog. That's right, 50. So I thought we'd do something a little different, as well as give you a bit of an update on the path for the vlog going forward. I have some fun stuff planned. Okay, so to start, I thought it would be cool to show you a handful of images that I have taken since I started shooting landscape photography up until this date. These might be images that I shot during a vlog episode. These might be images that I just shot at some point in the past on some trip. And there's no particular order to these. These are just 5 images that still to this day, some of them are a little older, some of them are newer. But at this point, these are 5 images that I feel really capture the spread of the kind of landscapes that I generally like to look for, and the moods and the feelings with my landscape photography that I generally like to go for. There's tons more. They're all available on my social media. Okay, so let's get started. This first image is called Larches on the Lakeshore. I took this in October of 2017. It was my second trip to Washington State to visit the North Cascades. The North Cascades are incredible, just jagged, huge mountain peaks that go right from pine-covered forest all the way up to glacial tundra, rocky, high alpine above tree line. And it's just really a dynamic place. And as a landscape photographer, it really stands out to me. I still try to make trips as often as I can. This particular photo was taken around noon on the second day of a hike. Initially, we had tried to climb up the trail that led to a lake nearby this one. However, as you can tell, there's a bunch of fresh snow, and on the day before during our hike, that snow had started. And it started snowing so hard that we were having trouble really navigating, and we were debating about where we were going to set up camp. There was already like 6 inches of snow on the ground, so we decided that it would be better to just bag that one, go all the way back down to the valley, find a campsite in the valley, and then just try for something the next day. And so that's what we did. And then this photo was taken the next day. We got up early. I shot sunrise actually that morning and got a number of very cool images. But this one stands out because it was a relatively short hike as I remember it. When we got up there, it was just the perfect coating of snow from the night before. And the larches, like I said, this was in October. I think it was early October. And so the larches had just popped, like they had just turned yellow. And so they were contrasting perfectly with the white snow. And you get a little bit of the emerald green down in the water. And so really I just kept it pretty simple here. We're up on a little bit of a bluff overlooking the lake. And I just used the lake shore as a leading line from left to right across the image to draw your eye deeper in, and then from there the larches just take over. And I like there's a bit of a diagonal coming across the right side. It balances off the lakeshore going off the left side, as well as that very upper right corner with the ridge, with that hillside or mountainside behind it, adding a little bit of extra depth up in the corner. It's just a really dynamic photo and really takes you right through the whole image. It's very easy to look at, I think, and I'm just always a sucker for yellow larches and white snow with a rocky backdrop. So yeah, this is a photo. I've printed this one before and it looks incredible printed. So this definitely still stands out as one of my favorite mountain scenes I have photographed, and at this point that's now coming up on 5 years, a little over 5 years since I've shot this image, and it still holds up. I still like it a lot. So okay, we'll keep it moving. This next image is going to be one that I obviously really like still, but this really goes back to my UP days, and to me it really captures the subtle beauty and peace of the Upper Peninsula without a lot of extra to it, and you'll see what I mean. So this one I call Hazy Superior Sunset, and just like it says, it was taken, I think I took this in late summer, mid to late summer, one of the summer, I think in 2015, if I'm correct. And at that point, I was doing a bit of commuting, so I was doing a lot of driving back and forth through the UP, mainly between Marquette and the Lower Peninsula, and doing that a couple times a week. And so I got a lot of opportunity driving along the lakeshore to really see a wide range of sunsets. And this one still will stand out just because of how the whole image just so subtly is so beautiful. From the very top, you just have soft painterly pastel colors going down into the clouds that are just catching the very last red wisps of light, very, very high clouds. As you can see, obviously the sun is sitting right on the horizon. I'm pretty sure that was wildfire smoke that summer that was blowing over the lake from Ontario. Ontario is huge and it's right across Lake Superior from us. There are a lot of wildfires up there in the summer, and very often because of the prevailing winds, we end up with a lot of that haze and smoke coming down over our south side of Superior near Marquette and in the UP. And so it's not uncommon for a lot of sunsets in the summer to have this vibe to them just because of that. But the one thing that is just, I think, obviously so grabbing, and pretty much the subject of this image, is the sun itself, with the perfect layers of haze just capturing this perfect red circular orb as it just sits right on the horizon. And it's a very simple horizon. Obviously that's the lake right at the bottom with two layers of forested trees and hillside, and then with the sun. And like I said, this very much captures the calm, peaceful beauty of the UP in a very no frills kind of way. It's just simple, beautiful, calm, and peaceful. Yeah, it was really a straightforward shoot. I was driving home and saw that the haze was really obscuring the sun in a beautiful way. So I got lucky with my timing that I came to a pullout on the lakeshore kind of right as the sun was getting close to the horizon. I noticed some of the high clouds were capturing the light, so I just pulled over and waited a few minutes for the sun to get right to the horizon. And as you can see, it turned out in a beautiful image. I also have this one printed, and it also looks fabulous. Just, you know, there's no just crazy blast of light, but the hues that are in it are just very, very satisfying to look at, even printed up. Actually, maybe even especially printed up. Definitely one of my favorites that I ever took in the UP. And again, this is a 2015 photo, so that's 7.5 years ago at this point. And it still holds up as a favorite of mine from all of my time in the UP. Let's move on. The next photo, okay, this is a big photo. This was a big photo. This was a big moment in my photography career. This is the diamond ring of the 2017 solar eclipse, the Great American Solar Eclipse. At this point, I had been into landscape photography for a couple of years and was really starting to develop my style and my eye and get a feel for what I like to shoot. And then it came to my radar that a total solar eclipse was going to be crossing mostly, well, the US, and it would be doing this in August of 2017. So I immediately was like, well, this is something I've obviously never had the chance to shoot before. It would be a great way for me to push myself and really challenge myself with capturing a moment that you can be all set up and ready for it, but totality like this only lasts like for, I think it was 2.5 minutes. So you gotta know your settings, you gotta know what you want to shoot, you have to be ready for it to capture a quality shot. I knew this would be a really good test and a really good opportunity for me to really push my photography. So I planned this whole trip to the high plains of Casper, Wyoming, and basically I chose there because the center line of the eclipse, where you're gonna see the best, longest totality, pretty much went right through town in Casper, Wyoming. And on the high plains in Wyoming, especially in August, that's very dry, and so your chances of having minimal clouds in the sky to obscure the solar eclipse were very high. It was very likely that it would be clear, it would be dry, and so that was a big factor on why I decided to go to Casper. I just wanted to get the solar eclipse shot. and I wanted to give myself the best chance and the best opportunity I could to get that. And so, yeah, Casper presented basically that perfect opportunity. I didn't go alone on this trip. My mom joined me on this trip, and it was a lot of fun. We were in town for, I think, 4 days total. We were in Casper, I think 3 days leading up to, and then the day of the eclipse. And then it was a great time. There was all sorts of festivities going on for the eclipse. There were people from all over the world. Sorry, I get into these stories, but that's kind of why I wanted to do this. I wanted to show some of my work and tell the story behind some of my favorite pieces of work. On this day, on the day of the eclipse, we drove up Casper Mountain, and we found a spot that we had scouted a few days before. And I mean, there were tons of other people around, but it was cool. We were able to get away from the majority of the crowds. But I mean, there were just tons of people out looking for it, which was kind of cool. It made a really fun atmosphere. And yeah, we got out really early, and that was pretty intentional. We wanted to find a spot that we'd like, and we just kind of wanted to enjoy the morning and wait for this incredible display of nature. It took until about 15 minutes before totality for us to notice a difference, and then the light really started to fade, and then it became obvious that it was starting. And pretty much from when the diamond ring phase, which is kind of like that, the diamond ring comes from, you can see the halo around the sun, and then the last little bits of sunlight that are just poking around the moon are, you know, kind of flaring and creating this diamond ring look. So this is the classic diamond ring solar eclipse shot. And that happens for just a few seconds at the beginning and at the end of the totality, as that last little bit of light is disappearing, and then as the first little bit of light is getting back around. I pretty much photographed right from this moment, the diamond ring at the beginning of totality, right on through, doing all sorts of different exposures and really playing with my settings, seeing what worked, seeing what would give me different looks and that sort of thing. So capturing this halo around the edge was, you know, I have a number of images that really show that off, and these solar prominences. The scale that this image represents is just mind-boggling to me. Like these prominences here, those are going as far away from the surface of the sun as you could fit multiple Earths in there. And to me, that's just incredible. So to have been there and been able to not only witness this with my eyes, because yes, I did pull my, as much as I wanted to get the photos, I did pull my eyes away and look, because when you're in totality, you can look at it with your own eyes. And it was just a mind-boggling sight. It's no wonder, to me, I left completely unsurprised by how ancient societies thousands of years ago witnessing this might have thought the world was ending or the gods were showing them a sign, because truly to your eye, it doesn't make sense to your brain. And unless you've seen it yourself, it's hard to really understand that. So because of all of that, for me and for this trip, it really represented kind of a turning point where it was a very fleeting event. It was a very significant event. It was, you know, the photo opportunities were incredible, but there was a very limited and specific window within which all of those opportunities you had to execute during. And I felt like I nailed it, and I walked away with a lot of confidence from the shoot, and really provided quite a jump forward in my photography, I felt. So yeah, this is a photo and a trip that will stand out to me probably my entire career. So all right, we'll keep moving on. Next image is this is really one of my favorite images. Obviously, it's why it's included in this list. It's such a simple image. I titled this one Moody Utah Pine Forest, and you know, pretty obvious as to why that is. I generally, little side note, my image names are generally relatively generic about the feel and the location and the subject. I'm not really good or artistic yet at creating names or titles for my work. It's generally pretty simple, right? So this one, Moody Utah Pine Forest, I think it's pretty obvious why. But the reason that I love this image so much is because it represents the kind of image that you can get when your eyes are just open to what's around you, even if you've already shot your initial subject or your initial reason for shooting. On this particular day, I got up very early with my sister. I was visiting her when she lived in Utah, and she lived in Salt Lake. I was looking at Google Maps and determined that near Sundance Ski Resort, there was a big mountain face that would catch the sunrise light very dramatically and beautifully. And so we went very early one morning and photographed this, and that shoot went amazing, and I got a great time lapse that I'm really happy with. I also got a number of still shots that just are the classic shot that I love, of just big mountain faces with soft pink sunrise light. It was like, that shoot alone that morning at sunrise was an incredible shoot on its own, and I easily could have included the sunrise images from that in this list. But the reason I included this one was because on the drive home, we were driving back out one of the valleys, and it had been pretty cold that overnight and then through that morning. And so as we're driving down, we're noticing this fog was coming off of a creek or a river. That fog, as it was getting up higher, was freezing to the pine trees a little bit. And you can see that in here. There's just the hint of white frost on some of these pine trees with the fog and the low-hanging cloud up higher. The texture and the mood and the mystery and just the gritty feeling of the image was too much not to try and capture in some way. And so I jumped out of the car, I put my long lens on, I set up my tripod, and I snapped a number of pictures. This is the one that stood out. That's something I really enjoy about this, is the shots you don't expect to get that end up being incredible, that end up being awesome, and I really love that. Okay, all right. One more photo, and it comes from a June of 2021 trip to Grand Teton National Park in Jackson, Wyoming. Now, if you've been following this vlog for a while, you probably know that I really enjoy visiting Grand Teton National Park, and I go there quite often. However, what you may or may not have noticed is that up until this point in 2021, all of my trips to Jackson had been in the winter, and all of my trips to Grand Teton had been in the winter, and that was largely for the skiing. Now, up until June of 2021, I had never been there in the summer. I knew that it was an opportunity to go see a landscape that I was relatively pretty familiar with, and go see it in pretty much a whole new light. Go see it in just without its winter cloak of snow, see the landscape, and I was just hoping to really see the landscape in a different way. I was in town for 4 or 5 days and did a number of hikes all over from the west side of the range to the east side of the range, some classics on the east side. But this shoot in particular was a sunrise shoot. That's Mount Moran standing there in the background with the Snake River in the foreground. This photo has really come to show is that, you know, when I take those early mornings and go and put myself in situations where the best light is going to fall on a grand landscape with just beautiful foreground and everything can come together, there's the opportunity for everything to come together, then good things can happen. We got out there super early. The light hadn't hit the clouds yet, but there was just a peak of sun coming, like there was just a peak of light coming onto the scene in general, but nothing blazing or orange or pink or red had hit the clouds yet. And even at that point, before I had my composition framed up, I had a feeling that morning was going to be special. The high cloud just was sitting and moving slow, and so I felt there was good opportunity for it to catch the sunrise light. And sure enough, as soon as that light really started to come over the horizon in the east behind us, it just lit the sky up beautifully. The mountains were so high, Mount Moran especially is so high, that its whole upper half was able to catch that pink sunrise light while the clouds were still holding it. And all of that nice soft light really bathed the foreground, the reflections, the forests, the riverbanks, everything. Just bathed it in a nice, soft, even light that I just feel everything came together in that moment and that morning for me to create what I feel is an exceptional photo that really has exceptional light, and everything about this photo just feels strong to me. And I feel like this is representative of what my work can be when I'm executing at my best. I'm in the right places, it's at the right time, I've got everything dialed in, I'm comfortable. This is where I feel like I'm in my element when I'm creating images like this. So yeah, I think that will conclude this little bit about 5 images that I find very fundamental to my portfolio of work. If you enjoyed this, I can certainly think about doing this with another handful of images at some point in the future. I love telling the stories behind these images and kind of like what it was like that morning, especially because not all of them are on the vlog. Okay, let's jump to an update about the vlog. Now, if you've been following for a while, don't worry. I'm not going anywhere. I already have a few in the pipeline, so there's a lot of good stuff coming, I feel. However, recently I have made some changes to my kit that I'm very excited about, and by kit I mean my photography gear that I'm very excited about. With these changes, you will hopefully see a significant jump in production quality. My goal is to make a wider range of content. Don't worry, I'll still be making my on-location landscape photography videos, as well as my mini docs on any major hikes or adventures I go on. But I'm also thinking I want to add in a few more short films. I've already filmed one, I'm still cutting it. I'm not super happy with it yet. It was more of an experimental piece, and I like a lot of the shots. I'm not quite so sure about the narrative yet. I want to work on a few more things like that though. And you know, whether it's a totally new idea, whether it's finishing this other idea I've already worked on a little bit, those will kind of come more when they're finished and polished. Now, there is something else I've been thinking about working into the vlog in some way, and that's philosophy. Don't worry, I'm not gonna go crazy with my own opinions. More, I wanna find ways in which I can photograph a classical philosophic idea in the landscape. Things like the meeting of heaven and earth, or sky and earth, or everything being in balance, like nature is a big balancing act, or nature is a cycle, or everything coming from nothing. Philosophical ideas like that. And I feel that I can bring that into a landscape photography frame in some way. I don't know exactly. These will be as they present themselves, totally when it feels natural. Currently reading this book, Wisdom of the Tao. I have long had interest in ancient Greek and ancient Roman philosophy. I've found that all very interesting. So now with reading the Tao, I feel like there's a wide range of philosophic ideas from the Eastern world to the Western world that can really be applied to nature and the landscape. And so my goal is to try to capture that in some way. Right now it's just an idea. It's not going to be in every episode. I do have some interesting ideas around it, so I want to play with that. I want to experiment with that a little bit. So yeah, that's 50 episodes in the bag, and I'm very excited about the future of this vlog. I have a lot of fun ideas and fun episodes planned, so be sure to like, comment, subscribe, follow me over on Instagram. It really helps small channels like this grow. Can't wait to show you more the landscape photography that I love, as well as more of the adventures that I love going on. And I know it was a little bit different and a little longer than usual, but I hope you enjoyed it. I certainly had fun making this one. So if you want to see similar things in the future, then let me know down in the comments. And yeah, I'll can't wait, and I'll catch you on the next one.